Hey everyone, and welcome to week 32, our third week of Tiki Month, and this one comes with a twist, pun intended. There's no rum in it. We're making the Saturn, and the Saturn is built on gin. It's easy to think Tiki means rum because almost everything we've built so far this month has been rum, but Tiki was never really about one spirit. It's a style. It's a way of layering tropical flavors, and the Saturn proves that it can work beyond rum. So here's the good news. We basically collected almost all of our ingredients already. The orgeat from the Mai Tai, the passion fruit from the Hurricane, and our special guest bottle this week, which we're gonna talk about in a moment. But first, a little history. The Saturn was invented in 1967 by a California bartender named Popo Galcini, who was born in the Philippines and became one of the most respected bartenders in Southern California. He entered this drink in the World Bartending Championship that year, a gin drink in a sea of rum, and he won. Originally called the X-15 after an experimental rocket plane, but renamed later for Saturn. And then, like a lot of Tiki drinks, it vanished and the recipe was lost for a long time until cocktail historian Jeff Berry, the same guy who rescued a whole shelf of these old Tiki formulas, supposedly tracked it down off of a souvenir glass he found in a thrift shop. So when you make this drink, appreciate that you're pouring a drink that almost didn't survive. So what's in the drink? Well, first of all, our bottle of the week, I guess. Our new bottle is Velvet Falernum. And just a quick aside, just so you know, I will not introduce a new bottle purchase in this course unless I'm certain you're going to have repeat usage, probably in this curriculum itself, but in general, this will come up in many drinks in your home bar experience. So what is Velvet Falernum? Well, it's a low-proof spice liqueur from Barbados with around 11% alcohol, and it tastes like lime, ginger, clove, and almond rolled together. Has a sweet, warm spice undertone. Bartenders love this ingredient because it adds sweetness and spice in a single pour. And on that almond note, this is gonna pair especially well with our almond orgeat syrup. The popular label you'll find is this one, the John B. Taylor's, and they're pretty easy to find and relatively inexpensive in stores. Now, moving on to our base spirit, gin is our surprise ingredient this week, and instead of the rum's sweet molasses funk flavor, gin again will bring juniper and botanicals and spice and pine, and I know that some of you don't appreciate gin so much, but this also will pair very well with the spiciness of the falernum and the passion fruit for that matter. It will be interesting to build our first Tiki on gin. Lemon is the acid this week, and notice it's lemon this week, which is a bit rounder and less aggressive than lime. And often, to keep in mind as a general note, lemon usually pairs with gin, lime usually pairs with rum, orange usually pairs with whiskey. It's not always the case, but you will find that generally that's the go-to pairing. Passion fruit, the same as what we used last week. It's gonna bring that sweet tart vibe, and orgeat is gonna round this out with this sweet almondy syrup that we tasted in the Mai Tai. And I think also it'll round out some of the spice and pine that maybe some of you don't appreciate as much in the gin. Glassware is going to be a rocks glass, and we're actually serving this over crushed ice. I talked about crushed ice last week, a few different methodologies, also in our New York Smash week. This week, I opted for the Lewis mallet bag, which I think is the best option if you don't have a dedicated machine. So I'm gonna fill my rocks glass now with crushed ice, but we're gonna build this in a shaker with regular ice. Okay. You definitely don't want to fill it all the way. You can always add more, and generally you do add more when you're building a crushed ice type of drink. You could also serve this in a tall sling glass or a Tiki mug, whatever you got, really. Let's build. Whoosh. Okay, into our shaker. 1.5 ounces of gin. 1/2 ounce of fresh lemon juice. You know it's fresh because it's got pits in there. 1/2 ounce of passion fruit syrup, which is not a screw cap. 1/4 of an ounce of orgeat almond syrup, and you'll notice generally this will be a little bit less on the ratio because it is quite sweet and quite creamy. So it kind of does a lot with a little. 1/4 ounce of our velvet falernum. Which is also, again, quite sweet. So note the quarter of an ounce measurement. That was a tick over 1/4 of an ounce. Don't tell anyone. Okay, add ice to your shaker. Regular cubed ice, not crushed ice. And can I just say, whenever I look at these ingredients, I often feel intimidated. It just always seems like a lot and very specific, and 1/4 ounce this, 1/4 ounce that, and so many bottles. But once you build it, it's always easier than it seems. It always seems just much more approachable once you actually start building it. Anyways, we're gonna shake this for 10 to 15 seconds until your fingers hurt. You know the drill. You know, I always say 10 to 15 seconds, but the truth is, it depends how vigorous you shake. If you shake pretty hard, 10 seconds is probably enough. I do tend to shake a little bit too much, and that will dilute your drink. So you do want to experiment with getting that just right. We're going to double strain again into our crushed ice. And if you want to go full vintage, this traditionally was flash blended in the blender. Okay, you do want to get it in the glass ideally. Okay, and now for the fun part, the garnish, which is what makes the Saturn the Saturn. So I'm going to add a little bit more crushed ice. Again, you can always add, can always take away. Okay, so the classic garnish for the Saturn is to take a thin strip of citrus, lemon or orange, and you want to wrap it around the top. Could be a good opportunity to use a cocktail pick. And we're going to put a cocktail cherry, plant it in the center, which I realized should also go in the cocktail pick. Listen, this series is really just watching Yosef fail. And I really mean that. I am learning with you. And I really think that so many teachers, especially on YouTube, are just showing you the highest level that is not so realistic. And I think all of the takeaways of my failures are very valuable when you're watching this to see what not to do, okay? Put your cherry, obviously, you wanna pick, you wanna pick through your peel and then somehow get your cherry, okay? The key is to take as long as possible so your drink just tastes like water once you're done with the garnish. That's, I think, okay. And we're just gonna use our fingers because we're at-home bartenders. And I'm gonna set this down. Oh man, it's a bit of finesse. All right. Listen, we're gonna call that done, okay? There's your shot, here's your money shot. All right, salud, folks. Cheers, here's the Saturn, a gin tiki. Listen, for all of you gin haters, you're not gonna taste the gin in this one. I did forget to mention, I opted for like a less grassy, less intense gin. It's not very piney. It's just a classic London dry. So, and I do that just because I never had the drink before, so I don't want to throw in like Mediterranean spice and everything. I want to, similar to vodka, but you know, find like a more neutral type of base spirit to see how the other ingredients play along. But still, the orgeat really does have a magical roundness to it. Really does pad any piney difficulty that you may have. It's very rounded and very, very tasty. It's good. It's also, I wouldn't say it's overly sweet, but I know some of you are sweet sensitive. There is the double dose here, the double punch of passion fruit and the orgeat and the falernum. There is a lot of sweet in here. So if you're overly sensitive, I would maybe, again, dial back, even though there were small amounts to begin with, I would dial back your 2 syrups here. I would keep the falernum and gin as is and dial back the passion fruit and orgeat. But I mean, that's not what Popo had in mind, right? Beautifully mixed, beautifully balanced. It's a really tasty drink. It leans a little bit sweet for my taste, but the garnish is super fun. And it's a definitely great experiment to see a gin-based tiki and play around with the methodology of a different base in our tiki theme. Whoosh. Okay, variations. Well, the best way to play with the Saturn is to change the gin. Like I said, the base is the variable here, and a classic London dry will keep it crisp and light, but a more heavy gin like Navy Strength, or again, like more of the spice gins that I've shown you in Gin Month, will actually help to balance out some of that sweet that's coming in, which could also be a good solution if you find it a little bit too sweet. If you can't find falernum, you could make a very good Saturn. You add a little bit more orgeat, plus a small squeeze of lime and a pinch of some kind of warm spice to stand in for it. Won't be exactly the same, but it will help to keep balance. And if you want to prove the lesson to yourself, build this exact same drink on rum. And you'll see that it's the structure here that's the formula and not just the base spirit. All right, so that's the Saturn, a gin base and a bunch of sweet syrups and an interesting garnish. And I think it's a very interesting lesson for us in this tiki theme. Next week, we're losing the alcohol and we're gonna build a mocktail. But until then, this is a good place to be. Thanks y'all for being here. And until next week, happy mixing.